The Tholos, a new ship that's just been released into EVE Online. Well, but it's developed by the Deathless, which is all part of the Zarzak or Zazak or whatever the bloody hell that name system is called. And Tholos is a fusion of starship engineering, cutting-edge Caldari electronics, and breakthroughs in shipboard bioinformatic technology. There's a bloody mouthful. This synergy beckoned into reality the perfect machine for the Circle's preferred hit-and-run doctrine. So, why is this destroyer different from the rest of them? Essentially, it boasts the capabilities both the breacher pod launchers, which are essentially debuffs against ships, applying essentially a dot like a warlock in World of Warcraft, which lasts between 50 and 75 seconds depending on the user's skill level. Its DPS is equal to the lower one of its maximum flat damage per second and maximum percentage of target HP damage per second, i.e. will not be higher than any of the two. The debuff inflict dot directly to raw shield armor and hull HP, ignores resistances, and it is able to damage ships under the effect of assault damage control, emergency damage control, or panic, and continue doing damage while the ship is in warp or is tethered. Essentially, it's an overpowered module that buggers other ships up, is the layman's term for that one. We are looking at a fitting for this, so bear with it. The Caldari Destroyer bonus is 7.5% bonus to small shield booster amount. The shield booster amount, sorry. Mimitar Destroyer bonus is 5% bonus to stasis web fire resistance. But the roll bonus is where the Tholos really comes into its own as a destroyer, is that it's got 150% bonus to small projectile, turret, and rocket damage. It can fit one small breacher pod launcher, and it can fit covert ops cloaking device. Okay, which you can use, which is interesting. And obviously the 100% reduction in cloaking devices CPU requirement, and the cloak reaction delay reduced to 15 seconds, and it's immune to all cargo scanners. So also it makes for a brilliant sort of runaround for it. The main skills required for this thing anyway are the Caldari and Mimitar Destroyer. So the actual skills are quite low for something like this, but the value of the ship at the moment anyway is quite high. And fitting this thing is not something you just want to put T2 on. You want to go Dead Space faction with this kind of thing. So it's not, skins wise, pretty much nothing at this point, which is to be expected. The general fitting for this is going to be a mixture of rockets and autocannons, simply because there are two types of fits for this. You can either go long range with light missiles and artillery, that's the one, or go close range. But with a destroyer, generally speaking, it's better to brawl with destroyers anyway for maximum damage application. In general, especially that I imagine this ship is being quite heavily used in faction warfare space at this point, and as runners around in nullsec. So it's most of the time it's brawling, but obviously there are sniper fits for this sort of thing. So this fit is 2 times 200 MN autocannon 2s, covert ops cloaking device 2 rocket launch 2s, and a small breacher pod launcher. The current crap we just shoved in it, was that basically, and there was no other particulars for it. But as you can see, it's 514 DPS. Quite a lot of DPS for a destroyer, to be quite honest with you. They're ridiculous amount. I'd enjoy it while it lasts before they nerf the damn thing. Pythium A type medium shield booster, which is boosting 314 per 3 seconds. Corelli A type 5mm micro warp drive for speed, maximum velocity of 1800. You could switch that out for an after bonus so you don't lose speed when you're scrambled and webbed yourself. But that would be kind of your own personal choice, really. We got a Shadow Spentest Warp Scrambler, which has a range of 11 kilometers. Overheated, it does 13. We've got a Shadow Spentest Stasis Webifier, which has a 14-kilometer range, but overheated, it does an 18-kilometer hit. Imperial Navy Capacitor Booster, which essentially you generally know that you would use as high as humanly possible, etc., for cap boosters, and use Navy, which would then essentially turn the fit stable instead of having 27 seconds of cap. And a Gistian B-type multi-spectrum shield hardener. The reason this fit is so expensive is because with this kind of ship and the sheer amount of damage it does, you kind of want to go one-on-one a lot of the time. But these things are kind of prime PvP targets at the moment, so you're going to need to be careful when using them. You've got a Shallow Serpentis damage control, which has fairly high resistances across the board. And a Navy micro-auxiliary power core for CPU fitting for the fitting itself. Anyway, you got a small EM shield reinforcer to plug the gap. You got a small thermal shield reinforcer again to plug the gap, and you've got a small polycarbon engine housing, which is designed to increase ship's velocity and maneuverability at the expense of armor amount. And obviously, to be fair, if you're shield tanking, armor is not really a thing. There are two types of drones on this particular setup that we've designed, and it's 5x Hornet EC300s and 5x Alkalo T2s, because the drone bay is only 50 M3. So essentially what you need to do with this thing is that if you are in a 1v1 and shit starts to go sideways, pull in your drones, release the Hornets, break the lock, leg it, basically. It is a very, very solo fit. This is designed for one-on-one. Not something that you really want to try and use in a larger fleet kind of thing. You could probably take on 2 or 3 frigates, but if you come up against somebody with a Condor, they could essentially keep you at range. You'd have to break the lock and run, leaving your drones there, obviously, and you got to go find more. So yeah. It's 11,435 EHP. That's a fair old amount for a destroyer. Targeting 37.5 skill dependence, and the drones make up 85.1 DPS of the overall setup. The resistances with this fit that you get essentially give you 63, 71, 68, 74. However, overheat that, you're up into the 70s across the board, apart from EM, which goes up to 68. The Pythium A-type mini shield booster 314, but overheated it's 345. And then this overheated from 1800 will take you up to 2500. So then if you overheat everything in terms of DPS, you'll find it actually doesn't really do that much difference, which is, interesting. But the Tholos is new, it's expensive, the fits are expensive. I don't believe that Tech 2ing a Tholos would invariably do the ship its justice. I think you're going to have to Dead Space faction fit it to really get the defensive capabilities and the offensive capabilities. Not so much with the weapons, but with, the stasis web fires and the scramblers and so on. Could you Kite in this thing? Yes, essentially you could. You switch to artillery cannons and you switch to light rocket launchers. You would change the warp scrambler to a warp disruptor, and you would leave your stasis web of fire overheated at all times, simply because with the range of 18 kilometers, anything that began to close the gap, you could then web it and keep moving away from it. So this ship setup is very easily interchanged to a sniper setup itself. So you can do one or the other. But the pure EHP, the pure DPS, the minimal skills needed, the dead space fit, this thing is just ridiculous. And you really can absolutely just nail somebody in this thing. I cannot think of a single T1 destroyer that would survive a brawl with the Tholos. I think the Tholos would absolutely nail anything from a Tech 2 fit gank coercer. This thing would destroy that thing before it even got started. Even a gank fit thrasher. I cannot see any particular T1 in a brawl standing up against it. And I think even T2 destroyers would struggle against the Tholos, to be honest. I really do. So yeah, new Deathless ship, decent fit. Subscribe if you like the video, I suppose. Take it easy.